Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Thank you all for tuning in. Disney princesses in the age of #MeToo. Well, it's certainly an interesting topic, and it's one that Disney is grappling with internally and on the public stage, as a number of people and groups have been calling out for changes to the princess lineup. And you may have noticed that Disney's made some already. We're going to look at that entire situation, and we're going to allow Lance to lead us today because, of course, there's no one better qualified to speak on Disney princesses than
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
I don't know about that part. I know I need my daughters here because they can keep me straight on this, because I have seen all of these movies with my daughters at one point in time. So,
okay.
I need their expertise. I'm afraid I'll mess some of this up, so they're going to let me know. So you princess fanatics, please, you're getting it through the viewpoint of a father who tried to raise two very strong women, and I think I've accomplished that fact. But we shall see here. So I'll do my best.
We talk politics, and we think that some of the discussions we get into are heated. But boy, you mess things up with Disney princesses, and I tell you what, you haven't seen how mad people can get.
It's interesting, and I guess you kind of hit on it, but why should we care whether or not Disney's reworking some of these dialogues in the movies with these remakes that they're coming out with? Why should we care?
Well, I can attest. I mean, I think in recent history in particular, the Me Too movement obviously is very recent, but even before that, part of what I think has eased and helped shape the public's opinion, for example, on the LGBT community, and particularly gay marriage, now that a majority of Americans, support the Supreme Court's decision, had been in the early, mid 2000s, as more programs, and then proceeding into this decade, more programs began to feature gay characters or people who we already knew. Take Ellen DeGeneres, right? Because that's an easy example, came out. And things like that helped normalize this thing that a lot of people really weren't all that familiar with. And in many ways, women being strong, independent, and, not necessarily needing to be with someone. While I wouldn't say that's a new idea, because I don't think that that's really fair, it's one of those things that there's a lot of people who are unfamiliar with how to navigate it. It's not they're opposed to it necessarily as much as they are. It's like, well, I don't know what to say or do or how to, what should I tell my daughter? And on the guy side, right, if you are with a woman or have women who are friends, or you are the boss of women, I think there's a whole level to care about there on how to navigate it in a way that both allows you to continue to lead, but at the same time is respectful of the way society's changing. So I think it's very relevant, because the media, and when I say the media, I'm including entertainment, always shapes a huge part of the way that we view things. And so when Disney, one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, makes decisions about characters and its movies, those have a huge impact on the generation that grows up watching whatever those movies are.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is from the background information is from the Wall Street Journal, Saturday, Sunday, November 17th and 18th, 2018 edition. The exchange section, page B1, and it goes on to B8. It's a rather lengthy article. On the front page, it says, Beauty and the Backlash. An internal debate at Disney asks, how do you keep the Princesses franchise relevant without alienating fans of classic characters? And it has, from left to right, over half the page, Snow White, Anna and Elsa, Tiana, Cinderella, and I'm going to get this one wrong, I'm sorry, because I've seen the movie, but I can't remember how it's pronounced. The girl from Brave, Merida, Merida. So please, I'm sure I'm going to hear from my daughters tonight after they listen to the show. Ariel, Belle, Mulan, Moana, and Aurora. And it has colored pictures there of them. But what starts this is that a couple of years ago, there was a screening of an yet unreleased Disney movie that is, has it been released yet? Ralph Breaks the Internet. I've seen all the stuff on the commercials, but Ralph Breaks the Internet is out or soon to be out during this holiday season. And in its first showing to the Disney hierarchy, there's a scene where Elsa and Sleeping Beauty have their hair down and are wearing pajamas. Snow White shows off her Coke bottle glasses. Cinderella shatters her glass slipper and thrusts it forward like a broken bottle at a girl who walks into the room. Rapunzel turns around and asks her, quote, "Do people assume all your problems get solved because a big, strong man showed up?" According to a person who was present, everyone in the audience audibly gasped. In their eyes, the scene broke all of the Disney rules that had built the princesses into a highly lucrative brand.
Yeah.
Showing them human. And then the question becomes, because, they make fun of it on some of the ESPN shows, well, the mouse dictates what we can say. So, when you talk about Disney and the Disney brand, it's not just the princesses. Disney controls a lot of what we view and what we take in as a society. But not to get off topic, but with that, so how should these ladies be portrayed? And I know, I'm picking out because I know one of our favorites at our house was and is Belle. Mm-hmm. And they talk about how which I have seen this one too, the Beauty and the Beast, what do they call that? The live action that came out in 2017.
Yep. I of course saw that as well.
But I remember when we watched Belle and talked about Belle, and Belle was, I think it is the favorite of my oldest daughter, who's now 30. Okay. If I'm incorrect again, I'll be corrected tonight.
Well, the ethics department will hear about your falsehoods.
But Belle was, number one, she had brown hair and all the other Disney characters she had seen. Let's see, she would have been 3 when Belle came out. So wow. I'm looking at here 1991. So she was born in 1988. So she would have been 3. Well, Belle had darker hair, which most of the Disney princesses have blonde hair, right? That she had seen, and Belle loved to read, and she loved to read. So she initially took to it. And what we talked about in the movie was how Belle was protecting her father and rejected the man who wanted her. And that's all I had ever really thought of the movie. But yet here in this article, it talks about when they did Beauty and the Beast, the live action, they changed some of the dialogue. And to contend with what director Bill Condon called the Stockholm Syndrome of a story about a young woman who falls in love with her captor. Mr. Condon said he was pushed by Emma Watson, the 28-year-old actress playing Belle, to include dialogue that showed her resistance. The Beast saying, "You think you could be happy here?" And Belle saying, "Can anybody be happy if they're not free?" That had never really sunk in or been part of our discussion. Yeah. About the movie, that Belle fell in love because she was held captive. Because I never really felt like she was, when I watched the movie, being held captive. But obviously this is something that even the actress, who's basically the same age as my daughter, 28 in 2017, said, let's get rid of this Stockholm syndrome of that. What do you think about that? Are there parts of these movies that I've missed watching them and enjoying them with my daughters? Because we always watched them and talked about what these women were accomplishing. Yeah. But it seems like some people are saying, well, these movies demean women. And when I watched them with my daughters, that wasn't what we got out of them. So, I know I'm abnormal anyway, that I don't walk the mainstream, but I don't remember my daughters talking about, feeling this well, I have to fall in love with a man kind of thing after watching these movies.
There's something to be said for, there's always the undercut messages or the subconscious messages that we pick up through movies that we may not consciously be aware of. So I want to acknowledge that before I say this next thing so that people aren't super upset at me. At the same time, we do go to see movies for entertainment. I mean, typically, right? That's most movies, particularly Disney princess movies, are to go and have an enjoyable experience. The extent to which young children are able to pick up on the deeper meaning of the messaging, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of research that tells us, to what extent they can do that. So having those conscious conversations with them about, what do you think about this or that, definitely changes maybe their experience with the movie or future movies. As far as have you been missing messages? I don't know. Different people watch them and they're going to get different things from them, especially adults that have a huge part to do with what are they looking for it. I know there's a lot of people now, when you look at comments on the internet, where they're searching for ways to tear things apart, for places where it fell short, or for places where it's like, oh, well, that right there, that was gender bias. And there might be some people that do that to this episode because we got two men talking about Disney princesses. That's just, it is what it is, right? I mean, I didn't, and I know there are boys who did, I'm sure. I was not one of them who said I wanted to be that princess, I just didn't. Not that I have any problem with those people who do, but that wasn't something that ever occurred to me.
But I wanted to be in my daughter's lives. So when they watch these movies, I wanted to watch them with them. And I always pointed out the strong points within the princess. And that's why I'm saying maybe I just missed this, because what you say, I mean, here's two examples. One, Keira Knightley, the star of Disney's recent The Nutcracker in the Four Realms, said last month on the Ellen DeGeneres show that she kept The Little Mermaid from her home because of Ariel's decision to forfeit her voice to find love. I mean, the songs are great, but do not give up your voice for a man. Hello? I'm like, I've watched that movie a dozen times with my daughter and don't remember that line, nor have they ever verbally said that to me. And my youngest daughter is a choir teacher. I mean, she was a voice major, education major in college and sings to this day, and thinks that that's the most amazing gift a person can have and wants to teach people, if they have that gift, to share it with others because you can make people feel better and all of those things. But I don't ever remember that part of the movie whatsoever. That wasn't the point of Ariel and everything else. But again, here's a female that looks at it and says, I don't want my daughters to even see that in my household, because I don't want them to get that message.
I think part of the problem.
Don't you have to pair it up a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. To an extent, it obviously has to do with, will you just let them watch it? And maybe you do, and it's just for entertainment, and you're not going to question them. Or maybe it's for entertainment, and then you're going to do some, well, what do you think about these parts? Or you're going to point out some things that maybe are the strong points. Or maybe in this, lady's household, maybe she's going to talk to her children about the weak points. Where did you see? And that's where I think we go too far with this is there's already a problem with the people that we look up to in the media being physically, emotionally, whatever, portrayed as too perfect, because it is a huge area of stress for adolescents, male and female, because of what they feel they have to live up to. So the more times that Disney or anybody else can make characters or actors or actresses in movies, the characters they're playing, all characters, more human, I think the better, because it's great to have something to aspire to, but there is a point where it goes too far. There's a point where when you're scrolling through Instagram and you're someone who sees all these people who look perfect. They have, if you're a guy, maybe they've got 6-pack abs and that's what you want, or if they're a female, they're, 120 pounds and they're just, got all the curves in the world that you could ever want, or whatever, whatever it is that you're looking up to. And that's just not the kind of, you're never going to look like they look. You're either not as tall, or you're not as short, or you're just not as lean, or you have bigger bones, or whatever. I think body image is a whole thing, but I'm just using it as an example because I think it's an easy one where some of this goes to an excess where it's, well, all the women in these movies need to be strong. Well, it's not just about, there's some men who don't want to be strong in the relationship, just like there are some women who, even if that's the way women were, they wouldn't want that, and that doesn't make it wrong. There is typically in many relationships, different areas where each partner or partners take on more submissive or more dominant roles.
Right. Take the lead.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, it's like our Thanksgiving show.
Right.
I do most of the cooking. My wife assists. My wife does most of the decorations and serving.
Yeah.
But together we put on a Thanksgiving meal for our family.
Mm-hmm.
So she takes leadership roles with parts of it, and I take leadership roles in other parts of it, but we make a good team.
Exactly.
Because our strengths are opposite
and
of each other.
I think the message should have less to do with, and this is examples of, I think, where movements, sometimes because there's so much steam behind them, it's almost like they stick to whatever the initial idea was, whether or not it's good. And I think the push has been a little bit too much strong, independent woman, I don't need no man, and not enough, I want an equal voice in a relationship, or if I don't want a relationship, then it's fine to, the strong, independent person. But it's almost like it's a little too much of the, well, I'm not going to let a man in my relationship tell me what to do. And it's like, well, I don't know if it's kind of okay, but I think the better message would be the relationship ought to be give and take in the areas where there are strengths and weaknesses.
Okay. I'm going to defend the women.
Okay.
Because
I'm just defending people.
My oldest daughter isn't married. I know, but she would like, I think, talking to her, to have someone in her life. But so many men are, lack of a better word, intimidated by her because she is intelligent. She's well-spoken. She knows, sorry guys, more about sports than most of the guys sitting at the bar on Sunday night or Monday night watching football or hockey or whatever, whatever sport it is. And she's had a real tough time finding someone to share her life with because guys can't get over the fact that she is strong, but she's also very caring.
Right.
They can't get past the strong part. So
because it makes them uncomfortable.
They're all looking for that submissive thing. And it's like, I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. But that goes back to, I think, goes back to it's almost like showing guys that they don't have to be, and this is a character thing, because this article is focusing on the princesses and that they need to be strong and independent. Well, what about focusing on the prince, the princes, and focusing on how they don't have to be dominant? Because I guess what I'm getting at here, you brought up 3 points in your. I know.
So
I know.
You're great. I've got 3 examples here that I want to share.
Okay.
From the article.
Go
ahead and talk about them. I mean, I'll share them.
Yeah.
Because you brought up the prince.
Yes.
You brought up body image, and you brought up what you say, and I brought up what you say to your children. And there are examples of all 3 of those things in this article.
I didn't read it just for the.
No, you didn't. But you're spot on.
And we let him go, but we have to tell people why we're here, Lance, before you give us your examples.
I will. So go ahead. You tell them why we're here.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's what you always do to me.
I know.
What is our mission here at TrueChat?
Well,
Justin?
TrueChat's working to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations.
And you know what's really cool, folks, is the poster's behind him. So he didn't even read the poster.
That's right. I could. See, I can see it like this, but nobody can see what I'm doing. I have to kind of twist my head.
Probably
around.
helps that he's the author of the mission statement.
It does help.
That he knows it so well.
I had that show a couple of weeks ago, though. I don't remember when we first changed to it, where I just completely
Yeah, you did.
spaced.
You started out.
I didn't have like anything.
With the 2-paragraph thing.
Yeah. I was on the wrong one. Okay, so tell us. Well, ethics@truechat.org, right? If people have concerns.
And there's already one, which
Yeah.
I will get corrected
That's
because
right.
I'm just going to say the young lady in Brave from now on because I don't know how to pronounce her name. I don't remember how to pronounce her name. So please don't chastise me.
We should have Brett on. He probably
too
knows.
hard. But it does mention in here how the character Olaf in Frozen and how he's portrayed as the dumb, and how to sell his merchandise. And, is that going to turn boys off of the movie and that kind of stuff? But what I found really interesting was the prince in the 1950s Cinderella original has only 6 lines of dialogue, 2 of which are wait. He says wait twice and has 4 other lines. Yet he still falls in love with Cinderella without ever talking to her.
Yeah. So see, that's what I was getting at with the...
Exactly. That's what I said. This was a great point to support what you were saying there about how it's portrayed within the gender of what's going on.
Because it's more than just...
Even the heterosexual gender stereotypes.
Because it's always just like I heard when Beauty and the Beast came out, there was talk about all this stuff again, because I thought they did a pretty nice job really of sticking to most of the original story while also doing several small things that really updated it. And I felt made it, a lot more sensitive to what's happening today. But one of the conversations surrounding this was when's the Disney movie going to come out where the princess rescues the prince? Because it is that it both serves, and I don't necessarily mean that literally as much as it's the guy swings in to save so-and-so, with Frozen being a rare exception of where that's the case.
Right.
I mean, all the other ones that I can think of, growing up, that's not how it was.
Well, but some of the newer ones show the female as a strong leader. Unfortunately, sometimes they have to pretend that they are a male because they're set in a historical context when women weren't given that right, which I guess you could argue today as well. But we are at a time where women can join the military and have worked their way up through, yes, a lot of times with sexual harassment or breaking the glass ceilings to work their way up in the hierarchy of the U.S. military. But were more advanced than they were in Mulan or those kinds of things where young women wanted to fight for their freedom or what they thought was right or for their kingdom and had to dress up as males in order to do that. Talking about your body image point in the young princess in Brave, they said was too thick, that when they drew her, there was repercussions within Disney that, okay, how are we going to make dolls and figurines and things because you've got her too thick? And they actually drew her then after the movie came out, when they started to produce the toys and things, they actually gave her a cinched waist and cleavage. But now here's where doggone it, I have to say thank you, John Q. Public or Josephine Public, because it says, after fan outcry over the slimmer, glammed up young princess, Disney returned to her original version. So it's okay.
Yeah.
What you said, it doesn't have to be this body image that nobody can meet.
Right.
People don't need that.
Or that 2% of the population
has. Or they're being entertained. Well, and 98% strive to achieve.
That they can't,
which isn't possible.
Right.
That it's okay to look normal and still do something to help society. That you don't have to look you don't have to have the right look to be able to help other people.
And there is something to be said for, because in the body image discussion, just like with the Me Too movement and some of the other stuff, and I'm not picking on Me Too by any means. Some of it, I think, goes too far or goes in the wrong direction, because the body image thing, again, there's a fine line between the difference of being healthy within what's healthy for you, and that's really key, and striving to obtain unreasonable goals. You know, the reality is, when I was in high school, there was no good explanation that I should weigh 260 pounds. You know, my body frame, my height shouldn't have that kind of weight on it. Now, a lot of muscle, but a lot of fat too, you know, and then post high school or near the end of high school, the decision was, I'm going to lose weight because I don't need this. And also my knees are killing me. So, I don't want to have them replaced when I'm 30, you know, so let's fix this. But then it also went too far the other way of believing that because the average told me that a healthy weight for me was around 190 pounds, that I should try to get to 190 pounds. And down around 200, I had family at multiple points who had asked me if I was all right because I didn't look healthy. You know, I was still 10 pounds away from where I was, where I was.
What the book is.
Yes, where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And now I spend most of the time between 210 and 220, and that's fine. You know, I'm happy with that. And I have a better understanding of why that's good for me. But I think the body image thing can move too far in. You don't have to care at all about your body. It has less to do with that and more to do with, you need to know what's realistic for your body, you know, and the confines of what you can carry and should carry, where you feel good.
That's the key.
You know, where you feel healthy. And you'll know if you don't. You know, I mean, I think once you start to pay attention to it, you'll have a pretty good idea of if you feel like you're at a place where you feel healthy.
You're saying what you feel like, not what you look like, or what other people think you look like. It's something that you know internally. Oh, I feel pretty good every day at this weight, whatever it is, you know, and you don't worry about what you look like. Or how your clothes fit. It's how do you feel inside? And then all of a sudden people start to know you for who you are, not what you look like. Once you become comfortable in your own skin, and I know I'm using some cliches, but there really are, that's really what it is. You know,
well, and a huge part of your image, you know, when we look at the science of how people perceive you, it has a lot to do with how you dress and how you look. But a huge part of that, when you look at those studies and you dig into them, it's not just do you dress well, it's do you dress confidently? In other words, do you look comfortable? You know, do you look like you're owning what you're wearing? That goes back to that, you know, strength of character. Are you happy with what you're wearing? Because some of the, you know, most successful people could wear anything they wanted as long as they liked what they were wearing in the right situation. And I think that has more to do with it than it does what you wear. And that goes back to this whole Disney thing, because a lot of times up until recently, right, the princesses are always in these ridiculously large gowns and things that aren't practical, that women today rarely wear that kind of thing, you know,
wearing a floor length dress to work in the kitchen, you know, with puffy cap sleeves. And it's like, what you'd wear? Who wears that when you're going to work in the kitchen? Or go out and chop wood.
I mean, it's just not, for most people, most of the time, it's not very practical.
One other point I want to make before we close the show, and that is they interviewed a young mother in Los Angeles. She had a child, a son and a daughter, ages 11 and 10. And she said, when I watched The Little Mermaid and Snow White, as the credits rolled, my mother looked at me and said, quote, "You have to find someone to take care of you." So her response now is, with her children, she watches those features that have more empowered narratives, like Tangled and Brave. I don't want them to think like I did. And that goes back to what I was saying as a father watching these princess movies with my daughters. I think it's the responsibility of the parent to make the point that you want your child to take from the movie. Like when we watched Belle, it was like, man, look at her. She's smart. She's reading. She's standing up to the town bully. She's, protecting herself and her father and their belongings.
Mm-hmm.
Not she has Stockholm syndrome because she falls in love with the person that imprisons her.
Right.
So I think a lot of it falls on parents. And like you said, a lot of times you put in a Disney movie because, well, that'll entertain the kids while I'm trying to get dinner on the table or I'm trying to vacuum or do the laundry or whatever. But at some point you need to take responsibility, and usually, hopefully the first time, hopefully you don't sit them down in front of one of those movies without having previewed it yourself.
Yeah.
I would hope that you watch it with them so that you can talk to them about it. So I think there is some responsibility on the parents to pull out the items from which you want your children to learn when you watch these movies.
Yeah. I mean, it always goes back to the parenting component of, obviously it'd be a good idea for you to know what your kids are watching, because you should be aware of the messaging. Because if you don't like the messaging, then you can make choices about, well, we don't want to show them that, or maybe you don't like the messaging and you show them that for that reason. That's, again, something I think we miss is this. We're becoming a little bit too averse to things that we don't agree with, where it's like, there's no place for that. Like some of this revisionist history stuff where it's like, well, we're not going to teach about these bad things that happened.
Right. We're going to gloss over them or skip them.
No. It's like, if anything, we need to amplify them, because that way people today really understand the severity of what's happened and are more motivated to avoid those situations. If your child never encounters these movies, that's the message that you don't agree with, then, as we talked about just the other day, it's that whole rebellious thing, right? Last week. I mean, then they're going to be more inclined to go see those things. If you show them to them and talk to them about it, and it's, here's why I don't like, this messaging, and what do you see that you don't like, and that is a lot going to produce much better results than this is the only way to think and you're only going to see this content. Because then again, at some point they're going to seek it out themselves, and then you're not going to be there to help them understand it.
I'm going to end with this, and the next test of this whole issue will come soon enough with Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I'm going to go see now after doing this show. I'm interested. But last summer, Disney showed the Princess clip that we opened the show with that had divided its own employees at a gathering of diehard fans, some dressed up as princesses themselves.
Wow.
The audience burst into applause. Sometimes you just got to trust the people. They know best. They liked that. The thing that threw Disney for such a loop, the diehards liked it. They thought, yeah, that's real. That's
you got to take a risk. That's entertainment. So if you liked our show and you need to tell your friends, Justin, how do you get a hold of us and listen to us? Where can you find us? At TrueChat.org on social media. And of course, you can listen anywhere that fine podcasts are found. For The State of Us on TrueChat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The State of Us. Be the change.